Hello, authors. I'm Joanne Morell, children's and young adult fiction writer and author of short non-fiction for authors. Thanks for joining me for the Hybrid Author podcast, sharing interviews from industry professionals to help you forge a career as a hybrid author, both independently and traditionally publishing your books. You can get the show notes for each episode and sign up for your free author pass over at the Hybrid Author website to discover your writing process, get tips on how to publish productively, and get comfortable promoting your books at www.hybridauthor.com.au. Let's crack on with the episode.
Hello, authors. I hope you're keeping well in whatever part of the world you reside and listen to the podcast in. Today's interview is with award-winning young adult fiction author Holden Shepherd. If you know Holden or follow him on social media, you'll see he has a massive following and is prolific with his posting across all platforms. So naturally, he's going to be talking to us about social media for authors, and he's going to discuss how social media has helped his author career, whether he posts strategically or not, and whether authors in 2022 need to have a social media presence to be successful. Holden also shares his tips on and do's and don'ts for authors looking to get started on social. So, in my author adventure this past fortnight, a whole lot of life got in the way of me being not very productive in my author business. I planned to record the audio for author fears and how to overcome them last Thursday, but I couldn't for some unforeseen reason. I can't remember now. I think it was due to noise or workmen or something happening on our street. Instead, I spent my time digging out old short stories. There's a competition happening at the moment in Australia. It's called Australia's Biggest Yarn, I think, and it's for a short story competition. And it's open to all ages, and it's quite a big cash prize. And I just thought, why not look over past work and see if I've got anything good enough to enter? And it was really nice revisiting old works. And I quite enjoyed reading stuff that I'd written in uni, and I actually thought it was really good. so that was good to revisit old stuff. I also started to look up some research books for the next in my Author Linings non-fiction series, which is Performance for Authors. And annoyingly, I couldn't get any from my ECU library, and I've had to just go to the local library, but at least I've started. I've picked up 2, and they're quite very interesting books so far. So I've started tentatively researching that. Yeah, so me planning on doing the recording for Author Fears and How to Overcome Them last Thursday changed to Friday. When I woke up on Friday, I had a head cold and I spent the whole day in bed instead. Did negative rat test for COVID and was negative. Yeah, and then my youngest child started getting fevers on Monday night or early Monday morning. And then we did took her for a test, and she turned a positive COVID test the next day. And then my other eldest daughter, she ended up testing positive. I was negative that whole time, but I have felt really rubbish. You might be able to hear it in my voice these last 2 days, but still negative tests. And then this morning, which is Friday the 13th, and it's actually of May, it's actually my birthday. Happy birthday to me. I got a positive COVID test, so I'm feeling rather lousy. So yeah, it's I can't imagine a whole lot's going to get done. That is life, and we just have to roll with the punches. So if you love the podcast or any of the episodes has helped you further in your author career, you can now pay it forward by buying me a coffee over at www.buymeacoffee.com/thehybridauthor. So that's enough for me. Let's crack on with the episode.
Holden Shepherd is an award-winning author born in Geraldton, Western Australia. His debut novel, Invisible Boys, Fremantle Press 2019, was published to both critical and commercial success. Invisible Boys won the WA Premier's Prize for an Emerging Writer, was shortlisted for the Victorian Premier's Literary Awards, and was named a notable book by the Children's Book Council of Australia. The novel is currently in production as a television series, and Holden's second novel, The Brink, will be published in August this year by Text Publishing. An absolute dream start to your author career, Holden. Welcome to the Hybrid Author Podcast.
G'day, Jo. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us. So can you tell us, how did you come into the world of writing and produce such an amazing work of art?
Well, look, I'm still guessing about that second part. I don't know how that happened, but I've been wanting to be a writer since I was literally 7 years old. So it was one of those things that happened very young, and I was reading a lot of Enid Blyton books, of all things. And I just wanted I was like, where's the Aussie kind of boy boarding school story? It didn't exist. And so I thought, well, I'll just write it myself then. And so I started, got a little exercise book and a notepad, started writing a story about Jake, who went to boarding school, and it just kind of never stopped from there. I was very serious about it at the age of 7, that, this is my career. I was going to charge $2.75 a book. I don't know where I pulled that number from. It's definitely not enough to make a profit. But I was very serious that this is my dream. This is what I want to do with my whole life. And I want to be a writer. I just kept going at it. So studied at uni, and then after uni did an honours degree, and then eventually made my way to, making the plunge of working on a full-length manuscript. And I wrote a fantasy novel that never got published, but I spent about 3 years on that one. And then when that failed, I ended up having to kind of dig deep and go, well, what am I going to have to write if I'm going to get published? What do I have to do to get an agent or a publisher to really take notice of me? And the answer was that I had to write about what hurts. I had to write something real. So there was a great quote from Ernest Hemingway: write hard and clear about what hurts. And I thought, that's what you do. That's the way to get a book published, is that you dive into something real. So I wrote a book called Invisible Boys in 2017. It got published in 2019, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Oh, huge congrats. That's amazing. Amazing to have a dream as a kid, quite that young, and then still have the same one and, kind of go after it. That's great.
That's good. They didn't say astronaut or something, right? Like, that would have been a lot more work, I feel.
Yeah, probably. Did you keep any of the work from when you were like 7? Like you sort of wrote down your little notepad?
I've kept literally all of it.
Oh, wow.
I have everything. I have most of it. I've got most of it in the filing cabinet, which is about 2 feet away from where I'm sitting right now. And the rest is somewhere locked up in storage. But I wheeled it out probably about 2 or 3 years ago. There's something called the Bad Diaries Salon. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No, I haven't.
But you get a bunch of writers in a pub, and you get the writers to read their earliest works and their really bad poetry and their journals. And so I whipped it all out back then, and it was hilarious. I was pissing myself laughing because, I was not a good writer at 7. I was 7 years old. Yeah. Everyone was just falling off cliffs, and it was crazy. But no, I've kept it all. I'm very sentimental about it.
That's awesome. You can probably take that into schools as well and be like, I started here. This is you now. This could be you.
That's not a bad idea. I've never done that, but I should.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So, well, I know you. I know of you from various events and in the literary scene, but mainly we've conversed on social media, Facebook mainly. But it feels like every time I open social media, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, you're there. Your posts are there like every day and stuff. So yeah, today I wanted to talk to you about social media. And do you post strategically? Is that something you have put yourself out there to do? You've thought about it? Or is it just naturally that you go on social media or a bit of both?
It's a great question. I love talking about social media because it is something that authors, I think, need to know how to get a handle on. I am a mix of both strategic and organic when it comes to social media. So the reason I really love Instagram in particular is that you can do stories. So I can just throw a story up there of whatever I'm doing in the day, or if I see a meme, or if I'm at the gym and I take a video of me working out, which is horribly self-absorbed, but I like it. But so that's just a space. And Twitter's kind of, to some extent, similar, that you can just put a random tweet out there. You can put a random Insta story out there. And it's just like, hey, here's what I'm doing. Like, here's me just being me. And I don't have to worry about, is that post going to get enough numbers? Is it going to get enough engagement and reach? And, I don't need to stress about that. So it's just really me being myself. Where I am more strategic is where I think about, okay, what am I going to post on Instagram on my main feed? What am I going to post on Facebook, on my author page, and Twitter as well to some extent, because you've always got something coming up. And I've found the busier I've gotten, the more projects that have been happening at once, there's always something coming up in the wings where you're like, okay, Monday next week, I've got to promote, the Perth Festival appearance. And then, Wednesday, I've got to promote that this book is coming out. And then I've got to make sure I remember to tell everyone to log into this thing, otherwise I won't have anyone watching me. So there's always something in the wings. So there is an element of being strategic about, posting enough, posting at certain times. Like I used to, I'll make sure I don't post, in the middle of the night, because no one's going to like the post, and then your stats go down, and probably the algorithm will work out that, well, this guy's posts don't do very well, so why would we push him forward?
Do you think though, if you did, like, you would reach a different kind of audience, like especially in Twitter, to me, is quite Americanized with the people that are on mine. I think you can change it around, but like if you posted it, a certain time frame that's good for them, you might get a whole other audience.
That's a good point. I think, and I used to do that when probably like 2016, 2017, 2018, when I was kind of like an indie author and I was putting out like little short stories on Kindle and stuff like that. I used to post deliberately at night, because that was the time the Americans were waking up. So I used to get lots of engagement because I was posting kind of very generic writing tips or writing memes and things about creative writing. So, and I'm not saying like big numbers, but I get 200 or 300 likes on a tweet, which for someone who was no one was like, oh,
that is good.
Following me back. And, that was quite nice. So that worked for a certain time. But then when it shifted to being, oh, hang on, I'm now published in Australia and New Zealand. My book is only published here, apart from kind of on Amazon and Kindle and Audible. I needed to focus my audience, my social media posting on, well, when's my audience awake? And also not just when they're awake, but a post isn't only seen in that first few minutes. It's seen for a certain amount of hours after that. So you don't want to be posting, if most of your audience is in Australia and you post at 8 p.m. Perth time, which is 11 p.m. Sydney time, you might get a few people just before bed hitting like and interacting with you, and then they all go to sleep. And then all the engagement on that post stops, and it can kill that post. So for the sake of engagement and reach, it's important to time it kind of during the day. So I usually do like early morning or like late arvo tends to be a decent time for me. And that depends what platform you're on, how often you post. So like Facebook author page, I'll post maybe 2 or 3 times a week. Twitter, multiple times a day. Instagram, every day when I'm in promo mode, and then less frequently when I'm not. But again, stories.
That's quite a lot. I suppose, are you in like not so much a schedule, but more like a routine now? You're thinking, like throughout the day for Twitter seems probably quite natural, and then you just
it feels
doing
normal.
it now.
Yeah, it's just so part of what I do every day now, so it doesn't feel like work. One thing, I watched a webinar by like a digital marketing expert years ago, kind of 2015, 2016. Probably all the rules have changed now. But at the time, he was kind of talking about Twitter, and he's saying, if you're going to use Twitter as a writer, you need to spend 30 minutes on it every day. And at the time, I was like, well, I hate Twitter, and I don't want to spend 30 minutes every day on Twitter, and I don't have the time to do that. But then I thought, well, I've taken this guy's webinar for a reason. Like, if he's an expert and he's saying this, I'm going to give it a bash. And I would now spend way more than half an hour every day on Twitter, and it's just integrated into my life that's what I do. But that's why I have a really engaged following on Twitter.
Yeah.
So it does absolutely work, but it does require a commitment. So yeah, it's integrated into my life. It's fairly organic. I have it in my head when I need to post stuff about certain, marketing campaigns or whatever, but I don't literally kind of structure it in a document or anything like that. It's not that sophisticated.
Yeah. You do follow campaigns then? You do know a bit about that and you do put it out. So maybe like, well, what's the campaign, sort of like a promotion of your book before it's launched and then after, that type of thing? Or?
Yeah, so when I talk about campaigns, I'm thinking more when you're with a publisher and they kind of give you a schedule of like, here's what we're going to be posting about, Fremantle Press might be posting about Hungerford Award, and they might be saying that here's what we're posting or whatever. So you might be aware that they're marketing professionals, so they will map it out in the document because they have to. And I'll follow what I'm required to do from a campaign like that if I'm given one. But on my own, I just like to wing it by the seat of my pants.
Yeah, okay. Well, I have to say, like, I find you very open and honest. And like, we don't hang out. I don't really like know you on a personal level, but from your social media, I feel like I do. You seem quite genuine. Sometimes we see a lot of you. And I mean, did you just decide to put yourself out there completely, or are there parts of your life that you just know that's off limits, you don't share at all? Because I feel like you do share a lot. Like you do. There's like your personal side, and then sometimes family as well, and with your marriage, and obviously your exercise is a big massive thing, and as well as your career. But so what else is there?
There's not much else to me, to be honest. Pretty much, family, gym, footy, writing. That's about it. So I made a really conscious decision. It was probably a marketing webinar or seminar or something that I went to around the same time. I went to a lot of things when I was kind of emerging, and I was like, I'm going to find out everything I need to do. But someone said, you need to put your face out there on social media if you want people to engage with you. And for the first year or so that I was on Twitter and social media, I didn't really do that, especially Twitter. I was just like words or GIFs or memes, but you don't see my face. And even my headshot from that time was very generic. Like I had this very kind of schoolboy look. And it wasn't me, like it was not really reflective of my personality or who I am. Yeah. But I was trying to be like, oh, well, I'm a writer. So there's my little writer headshot. And, writers just write stuff. They don't show their face. And so once I saw this, I was like, oh, hang on. Clearly that's a true thing. And then I started to notice it in my own feeds. If I'm scrolling through, I do stop if I see a face. And I'm like, oh, who's this person? What are they doing? And I will scroll straight past a tweet or a post where there's no image. So I thought, okay, this is the way forward. And around the same time, it just happened to kind of coincide with, I think, 2017, 2016. I lost a ton of weight. I really didn't like how I looked. I used to be obese and just very unfit. And so I would never take photos of myself anyway. They just didn't exist.
Yeah.
And so when I did start to lose a little bit of weight, I was like, maybe I can take a photo. Maybe I can put it up on the internet and, no one will kill me. And no one did kill me. And in fact, in hindsight, I could have been any size and I could have taken a photo and everyone would be like, hey, nice to meet you. But at the time I felt very, very self-conscious and I really lacked confidence and self-esteem. But yeah, once I had that sense of like, I feel okay about taking a selfie and I'm going to, then it became like rampant. And now I'm like this just massive, like narcissistic selfie monster, but also it works. Like I noticed, especially at the start, I don't check it anymore, but in that very early stage when I started posting, here I am at some event, and instead of a picture of the audience at a festival, it would be me standing there at the festival, and suddenly everyone was clicking on it. Like suddenly there were lots and lots of clicks on that image, and there were lots of engagement with those posts, and I was like, this is what works on social media. So it's to some extent that's cynical, I guess, but it's part of what I do. And then I just really made a conscious effort to make it me. So not to be that schoolboy kind of headshot guy. I was like, I'm just going to, I am a bit of a bogan, and it's pretty obvious if you talk to me for 5 seconds. So I was like, well, I'm just going to embrace that, and I'm not going to try to pretend to be this literary guy because I'm never going to be that.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be myself and just put it out there. But there are actually limits. It might not look like it because I do share and I do probably overshare. But I think it's really important if you're in the public eye in any way that you have to have your own secrets. You have to have things that you don't talk about. Otherwise, it becomes just this total invasion and there's no private you anymore. Mm-hmm. I noticed when I was on my book tour, I was in a regional town and someone asked me a question that was really personal. It was something in Invisible Boys that happens. And they're kind of like, did that happen to you? And at the time I thought, well, you've got to be vulnerable. You've got to be open. You've got to be honest. You've got to, that's the way to connect with people. And so I told this whole audience of people that, oh yes, that happened to me. And here's the detail. And as soon as I'd done it, I thought, I don't want to tell anyone that. Yeah. I never wanted anyone to know that I'd done that. And now I've told a whole group of people. And that was kind of the moment where it turned for me. And I was like, I need to have things that I don't say. I need to have a part of my life that's just for me and my husband and the people who know me intimately. And so they're worth, if I do an interview now, if it's a deep dive about my life, I will say to someone, I don't want to really talk about the suicide stuff. I don't really want to talk about my family being dysfunctional and everything that goes with that. I'm not going to tell you about my sex life or my husband's sex life. That's these things are off limits, but I have to put those boundaries in place. So there's being kind of open and honest and vulnerable, but there's also being protective of your own self. And I think it's really important when you're setting up social media.
Yeah, like boundaries and yeah. I think that it's not something I struggle with. I have to say, like, I feel like I'm rarely on social media these days, but I sort of grapple with putting my whole self out there. And very, very mindful of looking to get into the children's fiction sphere. And I think I've seen this before about someone, like an article with yourself about being called like an icon. And you were, I don't think you were happy about that. But it is that. It's like, model. Yeah. When you're out there, you put yourself out there, and then because you're this role model, you're expected to behave a certain way. So like, I'm always wondering, and I don't like to feel fake in any way. Like, I have to feel genuine to put myself out there. But yeah, I have just thought, so I guess if people who are putting themselves out there, they need to think about how they want to be perceived by people and set up some boundaries as well, as you said.
I think that's actually a really good point, especially for children's. I think the only reason I can get away with what I do is
a little bit
just barely. But I think the only reason I can is because my book, Invisible Boys and The Brink as well, are kind of, they're 15 and up. Like they're not just YA, they're really upper YA.
Yeah.
They're MA 15 plus if they were a TV show. Like they're edgy enough that it's okay that I am as well. Like I can show that part of myself because the people who are buying my book are 15 and older. So they can handle that. And I don't need to stress about ruining my image. But if you've got something that's YA for like 12 to 15, if you've got something for middle grade or junior, I think it actually is really important. Sadly, I don't think it should be. I think you should be able to kind of, be yourself on social media. But I do think there would be a part to play in, the gatekeepers, the people who are going to book you for a school talk or that kind of thing. If you're there, and it sound like really judgmental, but if you're there like drinking and partying all over your social media and stuff, or being really provocative sexually or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then you go, cool, I'm writing picture books and, come have me do a talk. Obviously, I don't agree with that. I think you should get and do whatever you want. But I think there will be people who go, oh, no, we can't book this person because on social media, they come across this way. I've definitely had people, I've had people not want to book me for an author talk just because of my book, let alone me. We don't want the sex mentioned. It's like, well, we don't want the gayness mentioned. It's like, well, what do you want me to say? There's not much left to talk about. I think it is a real consideration if you're in YA children's space. What are you putting out there, and who's going to still want to book you for a school talk and that kind of
that's a really good point. So you're definitely sounding like pro social media for authors. So do you would say you believe authors in 2022 need to have a social media presence to be successful? Or
I do, I think the caveat is if you define success, and I would, if you define success as selling lots of copies of your book, yes, I think you ought to have a social media presence. I think the key is that it should feel like something you're comfortable with. So if you're someone who you hate selfies and you really don't want to use Instagram, then don't. If you don't like political stuff, if you don't like things being reshared with other people, don't use Twitter. Maybe your Facebook is your thing, or maybe Instagram, but you just take photos of plants. I don't know, but it has to be, I think, in line with who you are. So who you are personally and who you are as a professional, your brand. If you're writing kids in YA, then, target your social media accordingly. But I do think it's important. I think a lot of my sales, a lot of my impact has come from the fact that I'm very hyper present on social media. I've found a lot of readers that way. I found a lot of media opportunities that way. So it really does amplify your voice, your chance to get noticed by people in a way that can't be done otherwise. Like it's free, like you can just log on there and just, if you're really clever with how you do it, you can get noticed for free, just putting in your own time. So I think that's really important. But I think there are authors who, I'm thinking someone maybe like really literary who just wants to kind of write this very, literary stuff and garner critical acclaim, but doesn't really care about sales. Then, I don't think you do need social media for that. And I can think of a fair few literary authors who just avoid it altogether and they're quite happy doing that because they hate it. So I don't think it's essential to do that. But if you're wanting to be commercially successful, I would have a hard time taking a commercial author seriously if they didn't have social media.
Social media has kind of helped your author career by the connections you've made, I suppose, and the opportunities you've found from these connections with people for events and stuff, and readers, I suppose.
It's definitely, the power of having someone share your stuff or retweet it means it's going to other people's audiences, not just yours. So you're constantly getting exposed to people who don't already know about you. If you're using hashtags, you're finding people who are into the same things you are. So using hashtags, especially Instagram, but also Twitter, kind of in the earlier days, it just got me exposed to lots more readers. So actually, firstly, it got me exposed to lots more writers. Like writers, and you'll know this because we're both writers and we've crossed paths on social media. Writers are kind of your first supporters. Like they'll kind of rally around you and be like, oh, I'm an emerging writer as well, or I'm aspiring and haven't written anything yet, but I want to. And that's your kind of initial core base of people who are going to support you. So social media helps you find other writers in your tribe, first off. And then secondly, it finds, readers who want to read what you're doing and podcasters, media, programmers, people in libraries and schools are really important. And I think that's a part of the industry that you don't get told a lot of about in the very early stages. But, those people will book you for paid talks and appearances and promotions. And those people are on social media.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. Do you feel one thing I've always worried about, I don't feel like I've got a lot of opinions about a lot of stuff, but you know, when you become quite opinionated and really putting yourself out there, you can, I guess some authors would worry about like the backlash that comes from that. Have you have you had to deal with, have you dealt with a lot of negativity or a lot of negative backlash from either opinionated posts or even just to do with your book or other things?
I have. Yeah, over the years, there's been a range of things that have come up that have been, I mean, some have been small but annoying. Some of them have been enormous and viral. And it's actually a really stressful thing to have happen. If something blows up in a negative way, it gives you the same fight or flight response you'd have with any kind of, you know, someone coming at you with a knife. Like your body is just like, oh my God, you know, like people are turning on me. I'm not okay. You know, am I going to lose everything? Am I going to lose all my friends? Like it's an incredibly stressful thing to have happen. What I have learned, I had one relatively recently, within the last month or so, and it was a huge pile on me personally. Like it was really, really toxic, and just all these people just absolutely just hating me. Like, and that's fine. You know, like if you're going to be a public figure, you're going to get people who just don't like you, and that happens. But there were a few in there who were people I knew, you know, like authors, people I thought were friends, and just kind of just absolutely stabbed me in the back. And I kind of was like, wow, this is terrible. But I've learned that often saying something on my own social media can often make that worse. And so I've learned to go, I might have to say something in private, either to the people involved or just ignore the people involved and say something, you know, private to my husband or to my mates and just be like, whoa, this just happened and it's terrible, and process it that way. Because if you, there was something that happened in 2020, which I can't talk about because there was a legal, legal threat around it. Of defamation, so I can't talk about it.
Oh, God.
This thing happened, and I was really upset about it. It happened in good faith. I went on social media, and you know, I'm so upset about this thing that's happened, and it blew up terribly. But it blew up in both ways. So I had lots of people coming at me saying, "You're just doing this for attention." I had the media, I had like, as in news and radio and TV, all coming at my publicist wanting to talk, and I was like, no. Like, I didn't do this for that. We shut it all down, which is why it's quite frustrating actually, because people would get there and say, oh, you just did this for publicity. And I was like, well, no, actually, I shut all the publicity down, and it wasn't about that. It was about saying how I felt at the time. But what was really scary was that as much as there was a negative backlash, there was also, if you're a public figure and you say like, hey, I'm really upset about this company, or I'm really upset about this thing that's happened, you have lots of people, you've got, you know, tens of thousands of supporters who are following you, who are going, how dare they? We're going to fight for you.
Yeah.
And so they get involved. And so that was what I realized.
The pitchfork posse.
I'd suddenly kind of lit everyone's torches in the village, and everyone had their pitchforks out, and they were going for it. And it's not that I didn't appreciate all the support, but it was like, oh, what have I done? You know, like that was the first moment I realized, like, oh, like if I use my platform to say something negative, especially if it names the person, this can just kick off.
Yeah.
And so that's been quite challenging. So I've learned to just not.
Yeah.
I've learned that, you know, if something bad happens and it really upsets me, the risk is if I'm alone. So if I'm alone and something terrible happens on social media, that's when I'm most likely to be like reactive and be like, I'm going to post about this, and, you know, I need support right now. So I'm going to post about it and say how I feel. And, you know, it feels great for about 30 seconds. And then I go, oh, what have I done? So I've learned that actually the best way is to not respond in the moment at all, but also not publicly. You know, don't put it on social media, back away, deal with it privately, and that can diffuse the whole situation really quickly. But there's no way, you know, there's no way around trolls. Trolls are always going to be there. People I block very frequently. I encourage people to block others, you know, even if they're people in the industry. I block authors all the time. If someone's, you know, really toxic and really abusive online, it doesn't matter if you're a blue tick author or you're a random troll with no profile picture. It's the same behavior. So I very quickly block people, and then they often screenshot it. I've always found that really weird. So people will kind of screenshot and be like, Holden Shepherd has just blocked me. And they'll tweet it to their followers as if they're exposing me for being someone who blocks. And I'm like, you know, I don't block nice people. I block people who are really awful. So this is not something to be proud of.
They're probably trying to gain some traction, maybe off the back of you or something.
You know, so you just have to kind of shrug that stuff off as well and just ignore it and not reply. but yeah, so it's a weird space, especially if you're opinionated, which sadly I am. But I'm learning to be a grown up, and I'm learning to just either not share the opinions or deal with it privately.
Yeah, I would say the topics that, in my opinion, are to stay away from is politics, COVID, Trump, like all those, especially COVID. Like I've just been noticing on social media how divided, especially groups of friends that I know. It's crazy. So I just and about the borders opening and stuff, and I've just held myself back from exploding so much, like, or just saying anything at all. I have just stopped myself because I know that it's just gonna create more friction and craziness. Like it's not gonna help anybody. It's just my frustrations coming out at other people's frustrations. So yes,
I think that's really wise.
Yeah.
I think as well, this comes back, this negative stuff and those kind of contentious topics or sharing your opinion, it does come back to your social media brand. Like, and that's why I don't, like, even though I have occasionally tweeted something opinionated about whatever, I deliberately often don't. So if there is some kind of thing that everyone is up in arms about, which, let's face it, every day there's at least 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 things that everyone's outraged about in society, I don't tweet about them. And even if it's about something that people think I should be, if it's something about LGBT stuff or mental health or whatever, why aren't you tweeting about? Why aren't you saying something? I'm like, because I don't want to. I don't want to be constantly this angry, negative person online. That becomes who you are, and I don't want it in my life. So I agree with your anger. I think this thing that's happened is terrible, but I don't need to post about it every day. Otherwise, that becomes who I am.
Yeah, that's it. You've already shared so many tips for authors looking to join social media and post and things like that. So, and I think you shared some don'ts. Do you have some do's and don'ts for authors looking to just start out, or anything other specific that you haven't mentioned already?
For authors, I think starting out, when I started out, this is a don't. I used to, because I was an indie author, so I was just putting out little short stories.
Buy my book.
That's it. And I was like, tweet constantly, like, here is my book cover, here is my book, it's available here, and it would get 1 like or 2 likes, and I'd be like, why is no one listening? I'll just do it again, and you come across as this sales bot. No one's going to interact with that. No one wants to be friends with that guy. So don't do that. And instead, just be a human being. Like, just be you. Just show everyone who you are day in, day out. Get to know them. Reciprocate, interact with other people. If you're interacting with them and you're being a mate to them, they'll be a mate to you, and it kind of, you scratch each other's backs and you support each other when you've got something important to share. So be a human being, be reciprocal, and then every now and then, yes, you will have a chance to be like, here's my book, and it's now.
Do you think it's okay though to share your covers, and obviously especially for indies as well, and the process they go through? Like illustrators show, especially for children's, show their drawings and their sketches all the time and stuff like that. That's all good. Like, the process is good.
Oh, absolutely. No, you've got to do it. You've got to show it off. It's just about mixing it in instead of kind of like, I'm for me, it was, a few times a day I'd be like, and here's my thing, and it's this much, and you're just sharing the same thing over and over. No one's listening, and in fact, you're actively turning people away. Whereas if you're, here I am having a coffee here I am at the gym, here am I doing this, and hey, today my book is, first glimpse of my cover, and here it is.
Yep.
But that's, like, you just want to keep it minimal. It's harder when you're an indie because social media is so vital, so you kind of need to do a lot of it. But yeah, keeping it minimal. And even, like, I don't think, apart from the day Invisible Boys came out, I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure I've never I might be wrong, but I don't think I've ever actually gone, hey guys, here is this book, and posted the picture of the cover with a link and said, buy it. I think I've only ever done that on the day that I think the day the pre-orders went up and the day that the book was released. But I've posted about that book a lot.
Yeah.
And so the way is to be saying something different about it each time. So you're not just going, here's cover, here's link, buy my book, it's, $12.99 on Amazon or whatever the hell it is. It's, hey, here I am with my book at my local wherever. And that's how you get your book seen that day. Or, someone else posts a picture with a shelfie of your book, and that's what you share a week later. Yeah. So you're constantly getting that out there. So my book cover is always going out there, and there's selfies of me with my book out there all the time. But the story, the caption that's going with it is not, guys, buy it, here's the link, click, 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 click.
Yeah.
It's just, here's what I'm doing today, and here's my book in a photo. That's it.
Yeah. It's probably about connection as well. Like, so what you're saying is, buy my book, but these people don't know you. And then if you're sharing, I'm at the gym, I'm having a coffee, that if someone sees that, probably like, oh, I like the gym. Oh, I like coffee. Oh, yeah, this guy's written a book. Yeah, I can connect with him. It might be decent or something on that level. So yeah, no, that's awesome. So you are a hybrid author.
Well, kind of.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, you indie and then traditional. So tell us about your indie experience.
Yeah, so I wrote that fantasy manuscript. That was my first book that I wrote. And I really thought it would get, when I sent it to agents and publishers, there was just no interest. There was no interest. There was, actually, I never sent it to publishers, to be honest. So I only ever sent it to agents, but everyone said no. There was one full request and he really liked it, but he ended up saying no. And so that kind of made me rethink and pivot to kind of writing more real and gritty stuff like Invisible Boys and The Brink. But yeah, so when I was still thinking, maybe when I was in the phase of this fantasy manuscript has failed, maybe I'll have to publish it myself. 2017, I sat there and went, okay, I'm going to release 4 short stories as ebooks and actually as paperbacks as well. I printed out paperbacks of these short stories, which again, not commercially a good idea. You do not have a good profit margin off these things. But I did, and it was going to be every quarter. So I did first quarter was a story called A Man. Second quarter was Scroll of Isidore, which is fantasy. And then there was The Black Flower, which was like edgy, kind of contemporary. And then the fourth one was meant to be a gay short story novella called Damage Control. And I wrote it. And it was about 20,000 words. And it was about this guy called Cade. And I just remember writing this gay story and thinking, I really want to keep writing this story. And it never stopped. And it ended up becoming Invisible Boys.
Oh, wow.
And when it came to that fourth quarter in 2017, I was like, I don't think I want to, I made the cover for it and everything. It was going to be my 4th indie release. And I just kind of had this moment where I was like, I don't think I feel like this might be good enough to put out there as, maybe someone will publish it. So instead I sent it off to agents and it actually was. It actually did. So that was kind of the end of my indie career. But it could have gone a very different way for me. It could have been that I ended up being an indie. And I like to dabble. I did something on Wattpad late last year and I wrote a Pokemon fan fiction.
Oh, wow.
It was called The Skeleton Thief. And I literally, because I used to do this when I was a teenager, I used to write Pokemon fanfics just put it out there chapter by chapter. And I was feeling really down about between The Brink and my third book. And I was like, I need to reconnect with how writing was just fun. And it just felt joyous, getting that flow state, just having fun with it. So I thought, screw it. No one said that just because you get published traditionally and you win awards that you can't write indie or you can't write fanfic. I can do what I want. So I did. So I wrote this 8-part novella called The Skeleton Thief, and I put it up week by week on Wattpad, and people read it. It was quite fun, actually.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to share that, and a good exercise as well. It sounds like you really like the fantasy style as well, so I can imagine you might go into that genre again. Hey,
it's on the cards still, but it's on the back burner. I've got a 2-book deal with Text, which is The Brink, and then the 3rd book. 4th book is probably Invisible Boys sequel. So
that's going to be great.
5 years from now, I'll look at fantasy again. I haven't lost interest in it. It's just it's on the back burner.
Yeah, maybe that's your process to get back to the fun side of writing, is to dabble in that before you go back over to the really serious stuff.
Yeah, it's a good way to do it. I don't think we get very lost in making a career as an author and trying to break through and succeed. And don't get me wrong, that's awesome because it's my life now and I live for it. It's been my lifelong dream and I love every day of it.
Yeah.
But I think within that, it's important to not completely disconnect from, I love writing. Writing's really fun. Yeah. I think that's a really vital part.
That's it, because it can be quite hard and you can put roadblocks in front of yourself to want to write the best thing ever. And that in itself is something that can just put you off completely. So, yeah.
That's right.
Have fun. Well, backtracking a little bit, back to the social media. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously said that when you receive negative comments and stuff, we're lucky we've got the ability that we can block these people. Is there any other security measures that you put in place, to protect yourself on social media?
Yeah, no, I do. I've got a very engaged following, and it's decent size. It's not massive, but there's something like 13,000 people. And so there's enough there that you occasionally do just attract someone who's just a little bit not well and makes you feel a bit uncomfortable in some way. So I've had a few run-ins where I've been like, whoa, like that made me feel really quite uncomfortable. There's been a couple where I was genuinely really terrified. It's really messed up stuff that's been sent to me, or just messages, or audio messages and all kinds of stuff that I won't go into. But there's stuff and you're just like, whoa, this is terrifying. So I am just really cautious. And there's even been, like I've tweeted, here I am at this shop or whatever, or here I am on a train, and people are like, I'm on the train, where are you? I'm at this shop, I'm coming to you now. And it's like, oh no, like I wasn't inviting my whole following to please come and find me. I was just saying, here I am. So
that's another good point as well, to think about that, like how much you post, this is me here, there, and then people know all this about you. That's quite scary.
It is. So I mean, I don't tag the places where I go. I don't usually take photos where the name of the place is visible. I don't say, people ask me where my gym is a lot. I don't tell them where it is. I don't say where my house is. I don't take photos outside my house that could identify where it is. I don't take photos in front of my car, like number plate, like just things that I'm like, I don't want people to be able to kind of really easily zero in on me. And I usually don't post until I've left a place. So, if I'm like, hey, here I am having a coffee, I have left. You won't find me in that building. I've safely departed that building and feel like I can now tweet about it.
That's it, isn't it?
But no, I think, as you start to get a larger following, I guess, but just generally speaking, being really cautious around scams as well. Like I've had, had a porn account scam me and pretend that I was a porn star, and a lot of people fell for it. Some of my followers paid and gave their credit card information away, and then they messaged me saying, "I'm so sorry. Like, I just wanted to see you naked." I'm like, well, that's flattering, but you've now lost your credit card. That's not great. So things like that will happen. So just be really careful, like what you click from, like what people send you. Like it didn't come from me, but someone's obviously just decided to clone my account and try to trick people.
So what do you do when you find that out? Do you take steps to get in touch with like the social media platform and then they take it down? Or
you have to report it. But I mean, I had to have literally hundreds of people. I mean, it was well over 100 people who messaged me saying, "Is this you? I've just been added by this thing." And I'm like, "No, it's not me. Can you please report it?" Yeah. And it took over 100 people to report it before it actually came down. It took a few days.
Wow.
So stuff like that does go on. And I guess, and this is probably more generic and not just applicable to social media, but, some people, it's really hard. Writers are very empathetic and trusting people, and we want to make friends, but some people are really not our friends.
Yeah.
And that was really hard to learn, that some people are going to want to use you or kind of use your voice to share their stuff, or they're going to, people I've barely met have been like, "Oh, yes, he's a close friend of mine." And I'm like, "I've met you once."
Trying to name drop. Oh no.
Yeah, it's just a really odd thing. So I guess just be cautious of how close you become to someone and how quickly. Like I've learned to just be really cautious of any new interaction and keeping it really professional and really distant, even when someone seems really nice, because I just don't know. I just don't know what people's agendas are.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I'm quite suspicious anyway, so I think I'd be like, "Oh, what's your game?" Like, I'm very.
You've got it.
And I don't believe a lot of people.
Yeah, no, you got it. You're sorted.
Yeah. I don't really understand how like algorithms and bots and stuff like that work, but I've noticed with my Instagram, and I've stopped, basically, if I get a new follower, I will look at their profile and see if they're interested in the same things as myself, like writing, and that's what I'm on Instagram as. I'm on Facebook personally, but in both. But yeah, because some people in the past, mainly the cryptocurrency people, the financial people seem to target me a lot, and then when I add them, then obviously they're just trying to sell me stuff, and then I have to end up saying, "Are you interested in writing at all, or authorship, or no?" And so I've stopped accepting these people as friends, and I seem to get a lot of romantic things, I suppose, just like hello, like guys trying to chat. Like they're picking you up, which I feel like saying, go to a dating site, don't go on like, I'm supposed social, but so I don't befriend them anymore either. So I'm not sure how your platform ends up with, or do people just scour the social media looking for like a hookup or something?
I mean, some are humans, but some are just bots. It's hard to tell sometimes, but there are humans who just are creepy.
Yeah,
and
or scammers, I guess, some of them. Yeah, it's usually like the surgeons or the army dudes, or I don't know. I'm just like, that's not even my type. Like,
yeah, but it's all made up. no, there is all that kind of stuff. It's quite, it feels quite weird sometimes. When you post
I wonder, like, I'm just like, how do these people find me? I have no idea. And also, all at once, about 2 weeks ago, about five people, book reviewers, who have got quite a big following, but not anybody I know. And then they sort of private message you, and they're like, they're charging a service basically. They you know, for you to put your book there, for them to review it. And the English is always broken, which is the first sign to me, like, you know, well, you say you're from Canada, are you really from there, from somewhere else? And chatting,
generic scam.
So, but I don't know if they are scammers or actually just people, but I'm very wary still as well. But again, all five at one point, I'm just like, how has that happened? Why have I floated over to your area? I have no idea. So, I mean, what's been some of the weirdest things happen on social, and some of the best like for yourself?
Some of the weirdest, I mean, some of the genuinely weirdest are the ones that I wouldn't even talk about here, but they are ones that were kind of really troubling, like genuinely scary. Like I was just like, oh, like, this person is just really cooked. Like, just this person's really unwell, and I need to not interact. You know, there are some people as well, they're not necessarily in that completely cooked category, but they think they're your best mate kind of thing because you wrote a book and they felt seen by it. So they end up wanting to kind of message you every day. And, you know, eventually, well, very quickly, I just had to stop replying because I can't do that. One, I don't have time, but two, it's not, you know, I don't know this person.
No.
So those kind of things happen. More of the fun, weird ones, you know, I get a lot of just guys trying to pick me up, which is very flattering. Because, you know, the gays are very visual learners. So, you know, if I put up posts of me flexing or whatever, I end up getting messages and nudes and, you know, videos of guys doing all kinds of things. So that's, you know, it's a weird perk. And I'm like, thank you, flattered, but married. But, you know, cheers. Nice to see you, you know, enjoying yourself. So that happens a lot. The best ones are when I get very occasionally, I get fan art, which I really like.
Yeah.
That's really touching when someone does fan art of my characters, or even there's been a few of me, which is very, like, great for the ego. But you're just like, wow, someone spent their time, you know, drawing my characters. I just think that's really special. You know, there's been all kinds of interpretations of them, maybe half a dozen or so. That's pretty cool when someone has taken the time to be that touched by your work that they do that. And then just, to be honest, I don't know if all my books will be like this, and probably they won't. I think Invisible Boys is special in what it did, in that it's tapped into a lot of people who read it, but especially gay men. Yep. It taps into a lot of the trauma that they went through when they were growing up. So I get messages, you know, it's still pretty much every day. And it's been a good nearly 2.5 years since the book came out.
It's probably not going to end for that book, to be honest, because people discover it day by day, or just, you know.
Yeah, it's surprisingly had this really long tail. You're usually kind of told you've got 3 months to sell the book and then it dies, you know, unless it, you know, becomes a bestseller. But this book has just kind of kept trundling along, and the messages have just kind of kept coming, and I'm grateful of them every single time they happen, because I felt alone my whole life. I felt really weird. I felt this, you know, I was this weird, how can you be a gay bogan? You know, that doesn't make any sense. No one understands that. And, you know, not everyone who messaged me is gay. Not everyone who messages me is a bogan, but a lot of them feel seen by either me and the way I am in the world, or especially the book. They feel seen by Zeke and Charlie and Hammer and Matt, who's the fourth boy in the book. And that's really touching. That's probably the best part, is that I put something out there that was really real for me. And I felt alone my whole life, and I felt weird about that. And suddenly you get hundreds, probably at this point, close to 1,000. I don't know how many messages I've had, but lots, you know, hundreds of people have come and said, I see that and I feel the same way. And, you know, they got it once. Like, they got one author write a book that made them feel seen. I've had hundreds of people messaging me saying, I feel seen by you. And I'm like, oh my God, do you know how overwhelming that is, and how special it is to know that, oh, I'm not alone, you know, and they're not alone. You know, it's been awesome. So that's the best part.
Oh, fantastic. No, that's amazing. Well, what can we expect to see from Holden in 2022 on social media and in your author career? So obviously The Brink's coming out, and when's the television series going to appear for Invisible Boys?
Yeah, lots is happening. I mean, so firstly, like, more of the same. Like, I'm not a particular particularly inventive beast on social media. So kind of what you see is what you get. So I suspect it'll still be similar stuff. But I've got a piece of memoir coming out in Black Ink's book called Growing Up in Country Australia, part of their Growing Up series. And that piece is called Territory. So that's out very soon. And then, the next big things will be The Brink is out in August. So I'll be kind of, my social media will probably pivot around July to being kind of pretty heavily around media and promo and events. There'll be a book tour of some kind. I'll try to head over east again, assuming COVID allows me to. Who knows what will happen by that point in our lives. But presumably there'll be, a book tour kind of nationally again. I would like that. So lots of coverage of that. And then, hopefully the TV series has moved along in gallops. It probably doesn't feel like it because TV moves even slower than publishing. if
Does it really? Wow, I'm surprised at that.
Yeah, it's to get something adapted, it's a trek. But we've moved very quickly. We got it optioned in 2020. It's got funding from Screen West, Screen Australia, and Stan now, which is awesome. So that's a streaming service.
Yep.
So they're all on board. We've done 2 writers' rooms. We've written the whole first episode script.
Oh, so you've been really involved.
I have, yeah. I've been in those rooms, and I've been part of kind of consulting on, I gave my feedback on the script and all that kind of thing.
Did they give you options, like if you want to be involved or not?
Yeah, it was my request. It was my request to be involved. Initially, my agent and I had 3 different production companies trying to get the rights.
Right.
So when you're in a situation like that, it actually just puts you in one of those positions where you can be like, well, I would like this, and I would like that, and, and if you don't, well, I'll go with the other party, so it upped our negotiation ability. We ended up with the amazing, so Nicholas Verso is directing, Tanya Chambers is producing, both absolute powerhouses in the industry. And they really get the story, they really get what it is. I feel very in good hands, and I don't feel the need, I'm involved as a writer, like I'm one of the screenwriters on the show. I'll probably write 1 or 2 episodes myself and then just be part of the writing process for the rest. But I'm not involved with the production side, and I'm pretty happy with that because I don't know a thing about casting, about locations, about.
Are you going to make a cameo appearance in it though?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, you're like the old Stephen King.
Yeah, I'm not even kidding. It was one of the conditions actually of me. When I was at that negotiation stage, I was like, I just want to have a little cameo. I don't want to roll. I'm not pretending I can act. I'm a writer. But I said I just want to be like, drunk hobo number 3, like in the back of like the Freemasons pub in Geraldton or something like that. Just yell out one line. That's enough for me. I just want to have been in it briefly.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's the plan.
Fantastic. Oh, well, I'm so excited for you. That's going to be great. I can't wait for that to come out. So is it going to be appearing on Stan?
Well, hopefully, yeah. So Stan being involved and giving that funding is indicating their interest in their
Damn it, I'll have to get that one back.
I will just say that there's no kind of guarantees with TV world. It's all kind of very fluid. But so we'll kind of find out more maybe around the time The Brink comes out, I would say. We might find out a bit more about the next steps of the TV series and then go from there. But it's moving forward at a really good rate. So I'm very happy.
Oh, fantastic. Well, congratulations. And thank you so much for your time and experience and sharing all you have today. It's been fantastic. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you and your books on social media and in stores?
For sure. So head to holdenshepherd.com and you can find all the relevant links. But you can also find me on Twitter. I'm at V8Shepherd. Instagram, I'm at Holden Shepherd, and Facebook, I'm at Holden Shepherd Author. Pretty much heading to any local indie bookseller. They'll have my book. You can find it at Big W now as well. You can find it, pretty much anywhere. We'll be able to order it in if they don't have it on the shelf. But yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's been so much fun chatting about social media, especially. I don't often get to talk kind of in depth about a topic, an element of this industry. So thanks for giving me that chance.
No, that's you've had some absolute gold to share, and obviously from your experience. So no, thank you so much.
So there you have it, folks, the incredible Holden Shepherd sharing his social media tips with us lucky authors. Keep an eye out for his new book, The Brink, which is being released by Text Publishing this August. And the reviews are already hitting the shelves and social, and it sounds like it's another not able to be put down read from Holden. On the Hybrid Author podcast next time, we have children's and contemporary fiction author Monique Mulligan, and she's sharing her insights on the topic of the publishing collective model, something I'd never heard about until I talked to Monique, so that's a great interview that's coming up next time. Best of luck for the next fortnight on your author adventure. It's bye for now.
That's the end for now, authors. I hope you're further forward in your author adventure after listening, and I hope you'll listen next time. Remember to head on over to the Hybrid Author website at www.hybridauthor.com.au to get your free author pass. It's bye for now.